Yeah.
Nice. All right. How are we feel? We feel good. Okay.
Feeling good. I've got a cup of tea. Just had the mid-afternoon snack.
Lovely.
And
Get your notes. We're feeling good.
caffeine and sugar is currently coursing its way through our veins as we talk. Well, not sugar for you, but caffeine.
Just caffeine. Pure caffeine. Unadulterated. Pure caffeine. All right. Welcome to the podcast. The hopefully useful and generally inspirational ideas from the winsomely unorthodox minds behind GoodSpace. That was a lot of qualifiers in there.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll keep working on it.
I enjoyed it.
Anyway, glad we're back. Do another pod. We're excited for this. How you feeling?
Feeling good. Yeah. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
I am too. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Before we get into it, let me just say GoodSpace is the real company that we run. We're not full-time podcasters. And at GoodSpace, we run what we call neighborhood work clubs.
You could probably tell we're not full-time podcasters. Yeah.
We have 3 neighborhood work clubs in London and 1 in Lille, Queen's Park, Chiswick, and soon Islington. We're very excited to be launching in Islington as soon as the lawyers and the builders let us do that. We will launch. That'll be exciting. But you can check us out at goodspace.work. You can read about what we do there, or pop into any one of our places. You can get a free day pass, spend a day checking it out, be around people who are trying to do cool things, hopefully just like you.
Awesome.
Very good. That's out of the way. So as we get started, I just the idea for this podcast, the topic for here, I think came as a function of how I was feeling a little bit about this podcast and the fact that I was feeling a little bit fearful, I think, of recording and then publishing something that we're not 100% sure about yet. And so the concept or the idea of it, I wrote in my little journal as I was writing that I said, what if it's not good, right? For someone who has effectively staked my professional career on doing things that are good, i.e. good space, good ideas, etc. What if it's not? Or what if people didn't think it was good? What if I don't think it's good? And so I started to ask myself this, and it's, I would say, a fear that keeps us from doing things. And so that's where we started. And so before we get into it, I think the idea is really what keeps us from shipping the work that we do.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, the key bit to that I think is really interesting for this conversation is not just the creativity part and the making part, but the shipping.
Yeah, that's it.
It's the sharing. It's the scary job of sharing something we have made, whether it be some new design, something we've written, anything, a business with the outside world.
That's it. I think as creative people, and I'll include us in that, but I think it's natural to make things, to create things, to write, to design, to do whatever it is that you want to do. But the hard part is in putting it out in the world.
Yeah.
And so what we want to think about today is the things that keep us from shipping the work, that keep maybe our team or people that we're around from shipping work. And then maybe how we can help ourselves and our team and those around us, maybe you all as well, to overcome those fears or those blockers or whatever they may be in order to get to ship that work. So to help us frame the context, to put it in front so that you know what to expect, we have separately come up with 3 things each that we will say are what we think is the main things that keep us from delivering or shipping the work. And then we've come up with 3 ideas to help ourselves or those who are listening to us potentially overcome those and then go. So why don't we we'll give our 3 without any context, and then we'll dive into them so you know what's coming.
Perfect.
So what are your 3 things? What are the 3 things that keep you from shipping your creative work?
Yeah. I hate the idea of self-promotion, right? The question is,
no context.
Who am I to X? Yeah. Second, I worry that I don't have ideas. What I would produce would be samey and boring or boring. And then the third one for me is when you ship something with the world, you are being exposed to the possibility of criticism. So it's exposing.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are good ones. And mine are similar. So one, fear of what people might think. What if they think it sucks? Perfectionism. What if I think it sucks? And imposter syndrome. Why would anyone care what I have to say or do or put out in the world? So those three things, I think, are the big ones for me in terms of keeping me from shipping.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm excited by if we dig into that. Some of our overlaps would be interesting.
Yeah.
But why don't you riff on one of them? And what's your?
So I think maybe my number one, and a lot of times, and probably depending on what it is that I've made or what it is that I've created, is what if I put it out there and people are like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, or you're not very good at what you're doing, and therefore it just I'm afraid of people. I'm afraid of people who are, potentially better than I am at these things, who have done different things, and they're saying, oh, you haven't figured it out, or you haven't gotten there yet. So that certainly keeps me from doing it.
It's funny, isn't it? When you say it, I mean, it's so true. It's true for all of us. When you say it out loud, when I say it out loud, it seems so ridiculous, right? Because it's like, it's not like you're dying or anything. It's like it's a social orientated thing.
Totally is. I mean, fear of man, fear of our peers is something that keeps us from doing a lot of things that we should be doing. So that's a big one. Well, remind me of yours again, because one that's similar to that.
Yeah, it's not liking self-promotion, worry I don't have ideas, and the exposure to criticism, which I suppose being exposed to criticism.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think that's it. So tell me what you were thinking, kind of that brought that out. I mean,
on the criticism.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? And I can elaborate on this a little in a bit, but Tolkien, when he was, and I was massively encouraged by this, and I will share what I think in a second, but I read a brilliant book of a collection of all the letters he'd written, and he wrote letters on everything, which is brilliant, and his son collected a book of these letters. And one of the things that struck me from all these letters, all the correspondence with his publisher, his family, his friends, was how much creative insecurity he had. And which is just hugely encouraging to read in one of your heroes.
Because this is Tolkien that we're talking about, right?
Exactly. I would say with Lord of the Rings is the greatest work of fiction of the 21st century. So if he has creative insecurity, then that's good to hear. And that word, I thought of this because hearing that word exposing, when he was about to publish The Lord of the Rings, he said, I'm dreading publication. It's impossible not to mind what people will think, for I've exposed my heart to be shot at. And I think that, interestingly, the best work we'd probably do will be some form of work in one way, shape, or form that exposes us, right? With something exposing something of you in that work. And so if you're doing that, and it feels a little bit risky and vulnerable, then you feel all the more exposed. Like if someone's having a dig at this, you feel like they're having a dig at you. Like, how do you not take it personally? How do you not separate the work from yourself when there's so much of you in it?
That's it. No, that's funny. I watched it was a video, a YouTube video or something that we were watching last night, and it was artists who their final works were self-portraits, and it was you could see like how much of themselves, literally, in a self-portrait was being portrayed, and like you're seeing them kind of year over year, and like the differences in how they would view themselves coming through in these portraits, and so I think it's similar. We put a lot of ourselves into things, and I think the best work, the best things we do, has so much of us in it, as you're saying, that there is a gray area where you can't separate the work from the person.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting one. I mean, maybe we'll talk about how to get over that in a little bit, but that's an interesting concept.
I want to get to the juicy bit where you tell us how we resolve it.
Yeah. I don't know yet. We'll see. So I think it's similar, and there's the what other people will think about what we make and what we produce. And then there's like what we think about it, right? So the perfectionism comes into play, or at least our desire to do the best work that we can do and not wanting to let go of it until it's ready. And I think that's a hard one to overcome. I remember writing an essay or something to turn into my, school days, and staying up all night, and I've written and I've got pages and pages of work, and I can't resolve it because there's more ideas coming, and so this ability to say enough is enough, and to end whatever it is that you're doing and complete it in a sense. Maybe it's never complete in a true sense, but complete enough to put it out there is a tricky thing, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what's so interesting about that is that Seth Godin has some brilliant advice on this. Seth's brilliant on this sort of stuff, right? And specifically, I mean, we're talking in general about shipping stuff and all kind of creative endeavors. But I suppose this advice that Seth gives is specifically to do with blogging, right? Writing blogs. But the advice pertains to all shipping of work, right? But I mean, as someone who has, we blogged to 80,000 people and has done so for 25 years, consistently every single day. And he's kind of known as the sort of godfather of blogging. There's a brilliant podcast, which I'd highly recommend, with him and Tim Ferriss, him on Tim Ferriss's podcast, where he's effectively coaching Tim Ferriss on writing. And one of the things Tim says to him is, how do you know when you're done? Right. Nice. In terms of finishing. And he's like, I don't, which is annoying. But his analogy for it, and there's loads of brilliant advice on shipping, but his analogy for it is, imagine going into a conversation needing to know when you're done, and it's such a helpful framing for specifically thinking around blogs, posting on blogs, because to think of it just as a segment in a conversation, right? But to think of anything, right? I suppose that you're whether it be posting on Instagram or whatever, to think of it as this is a segment. Almost like the comic book. This is the panel in this particular moment, and I just need to make that point in this moment. And the conversation will then continue. Which is a nice way to look at it, I think.
No, that's really good and really helpful, because everything that we're doing, all the creating, it is sort of a conversation in the sense that it's ongoing, right? And so I think one of the things that I would encourage myself and us in terms of how do we get over some of this is, in my mind, it's sort of thinking about the doing and not what I'm trying to get out of it. And so making it a habit, a practice. So it doesn't have to be finished in the sense that it's completely my entire thought or my entire, body of work, but it's just today's portion of that or this week's portion of that. Therefore, there's space to continue to build upon it, but I don't, and so it frees me from having to feel like it's done.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that so much. Focusing on the input and focusing on it just being about your practice and you getting it done, and then just letting the cards fall where they do, the chips fall where they do. Which again, actually perfectly dovetails and remind me, because in this same podcast, he says, I've got the quote written down here. He says, he ships the work not because it's perfect, but because it's Friday. Which I just thought, it's time to ship, is a brilliant way to frame it. And he said, the problem I've got, so he has a practice where he posts regularly on a certain time frame. And he says, if I had to ascertain, and having that practice and having that almost that rule within your head of, I do this consistently at this particular cadence, whatever your cadence is, daily, weekly, whatever, having that in place means that every time that Friday arrives, he's not thinking, do I need to write again? Or in his case, actually every day.
Right.
He doesn't have to go through that turmoil. You're just doing it.
Yeah, that's it.
He always cites someone he used to work with when he was very young, called Isaac Asimov, who I'm saying his name wrong, right? And you'll know probably more than me, but he is the inventor of the robot, the science fiction robot, right?
Right. He's like a science fiction writer, scientist guy.
Yeah, who basically invented the robot. And Seth worked with him and would come into his apartment in New York every day And he said that a lot of his inspiration came from watching him write.
Interesting.
And he said, literally, all Isaac would do every morning, he'd say, what do you do? How do you, he wrote an absurd amount. He says, every morning I get up, I sit in front of the typewriter, no matter what, 9 o'clock, I write, no matter what, until 12. And then I take out the bits. After that, I take out the bits that are bad, and I'm done.
So simple.
Yeah, yeah. But what's brilliant about it is, obviously, it's all focused around developing a practice and a habit. But what's brilliant about it as well is that Seth makes this point. He's like, if you know that you have that in place, that tomorrow your ass is going to be down the chair,
that's it,
and you've got to make, then you will be, what your subconscious will be working and thinking about the ideas in the background, right? Knowing that you have to turn up and provide something at a certain point. Your brain is producing, so you won't just turn up and face a blank page. You'll probably arm, because you're like, I've got to turn up.
You've got something. Yeah. And you're freed from the fact that you could have, like, you can't put it off.
Yeah.
And so there's a freedom that actually comes from that, in the sense that you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And so the fact that there's no alternative to be like, well, I'll do it tomorrow when I think I'm clearer or whatever. It's just, no, I'll just do it now, and therefore I'm into it. Yeah, which is good
for sure.
Yeah, it's like an athletic pursuit or a fitness goal. I mean, the journey is in the getting up, right, and making sure that you're prepared to do it, right, and it matters less, what the workout looks like, but that you did it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me as well, and this speaks into my point of kind of helping you overcome that fear of exposure, is one of the best ways to do that is with quantity, right?
Yeah.
So almost what's interesting is that the pressure you put yourself under, if you like, to have to create something amazing, or let's take the example of writing a blog. I have to write a killer viral blog, right? But I've got a month to do it. It's going to probably not be very good. It'll be overwrought. It'll be overthought. It'll probably be filled with far too much, or it'll be filled with fear. Actually, probably the best way to write a killer blog, if you've got a month to do it, is write 20.
Yeah.
And I think so I did, and this is a major shout out, by the way, to this course. I did a microblogging course run by David Hyatt from the Do Lectures, who we're big fans of. And I'd done courses before. I've actually done some of his courses before. But the thing that was most transformative about that course was that at the end of the day, he said there were 100 of us in the room. And he said, let's come up with a hashtag together. And if you're up for it, we will do a 30-day writing challenge. So we'll each write for 30 days solid, every single day.
Wow.
And see what happens. And his point in that, that's fascinating, is that the point is not to boost your engagement online. The point is that you will find your voice. The point is that showing up every single day is the way through to break through the barrier of fear and to find your voice.
Absolutely.
And that's what's so interesting about it, is that I'd highly recommend following on LinkedIn if you're interested in, to be honest, writing for any form of shipping creative work.
Yeah.
He makes the point that, firstly, that Beethoven created something like, over his lifetime, 722 works across different genres. And of those, guess the amount that he's known for now.
I don't know.
8.
Okay.
8. Right.
Yeah, right.
And so the point he's saying in that, and this was my experience born out from the 30-day challenge, is that the quantity doesn't just help you overcome your fear. It actually is the only way to uncover the gold.
To get the good stuff, yeah.
And that was my experience, right? As in, genuinely, over that 30-day period, I wrote some pretty average stuff. But honestly, the stuff that I've written that's most resonated with people, the stuff that I've written that sounds most like me, that makes me feel, I don't care what happens to this. I'm glad that I've said my truth, that what I want to say. And that reverberated with people who share my values in this world. That stuff I've written only came about in that 30-day period.
Yeah, and I don't think it's insignificant or an accident that those are the ones that got the engagement, right? Because it was the real stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And I think, so one of my points of things that you can do about it, is sort of embracing the imperfection in the thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
And that sounds easy. And of course, the ideas of posting a lot or producing a lot allows you to do that. And I think that's it, because there's more coming.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can, even if you don't feel in love with it, it's not the best thing you've ever made. Right. By producing more, you you bury it behind something else that you've made. There's, I think you told me this, there's a quote or something that someone had said, but it was basically, people don't remember the bad stuff that you wrote. Yeah. Right. Like, we think that that's what everyone's looking at, is the stuff that was no good. But if it's really not any good, they forget about it immediately. They barely read it and then moved on.
You're almost grateful to the algorithm.
Right.
For hiding your rubbish.
The bad stuff doesn't turn up because nobody reads it. Nobody cares.
Hide the bad stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. So so we have to embrace it a little bit and just know that it's not perfect, and that we're learning, we're growing, right? And if we think about it like that, we're learning and growing, and this is a journey that we're on. This is not necessarily the finished product of ourselves.
For sure. And I think the other thing to kind of embracing your imperfections and dealing with exposing work into the world is, and again, this is from I learned this partly from but obviously we believe in it very strongly in what we do with the work clubs, is you need to find your creative buddies. You need to find your people, because, ultimately, if you are, like on this microblogging course, as I say, we shared this hashtag and then we all did it, right? So, and we had a WhatsApp group, and people actually engaged in the WhatsApp group, and we would just cheer each other on as we were posting each day. And I've got 3 or 4 friends from that microblogging course that are still, we all encourage each other on LinkedIn, and we still meet up for coffee and that sort of thing. And I think this is what's so interesting, right? In that I saw a post recently where you can see the sort of posting police on LinkedIn, where someone said, "Oh, I don't like this. It's so cringy, and this should be on Instagram, and it's more life. It's not work." I think what they fail to realize is that the greatest challenge to shipping work is the resistance, like what Stephen Pressfield calls the resistance, right? It's what we're talking about here is your inner critic, it's perfectionism, it's the fear of exposing yourself. And so, there will be those people. Yeah. And what you really need, one of the best antidotes, is to find people who get it, who understand that what you're doing is risky, vulnerable, difficult, and who are going to cheerlead you, and also give you, because if you have that relationship with people who have your best interests at heart, they're the people you can take the feedback from, the actual criticism, right?
That's right.
And it reminds me of, forgive the monologue, can I say,
no, this is good,
any excuse to talk about Tolkien again and Lord of the Rings. But one of the big outcomes from reading these letters of J.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, I was like, how did this guy overcome this creative insecurity? And because, of course, his context, rather like these people at the posting police on LinkedIn, his context was amongst a lot of very snooty professors at Oxford. So he was an Oxford don.
Right, very smart, but they knew it.
Yeah, absolutely. And they would look down on him, he said, this is a direct quote, with some degree of pity, what he called, this is a direct quote again, his silly fairy tale nonsense. So, and you think, how did you create something that you create this entire fantastical world within that context? And the answer, of course, is that, and many people will know this, is that he had a small group, committed friends, who would meet up every so often in their rooms at university, in the pub, in the Turf Cavern,
that's right,
or in the Eagle and Child, and in various places. And they would meet up, and there was about 7 or 8 of them, and they were all, this is the key thing, they were all involved in one way, shape or form in their own creative endeavors, right? So they were all, as Brené Brown would say, in the arena.
Mutual encouragement.
Exactly. They all knew what it was like doing that. And they would encourage each other, and they would share excerpts of, the work in progress. Because there's essentially the same thing as well, right? Like, I love sharing my work in progress work with people, but you've got to be very careful who you share it with. Don't share it with those Oxford dons. Right. Don't share it with the post bashers on LinkedIn. And amazingly, these people became known as the Inklings. They called themselves the Inklings. And one of them was C.S. Lewis,
Yeah,
his
right.
great buddy, who wrote
Narnia,
and
amongst other things.
amongst a lot of brilliant literature. And anyway, one of the most moving things, and forgive me for rapping about this, but one of the most amazing things about it was that Tolkien claims that were it not for the group, that small group of supportive, loyal friends, he would never have shipped The Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
And C.S. Lewis, he came to suggest to his publisher at the end that the publisher was saying, I've got some suggestions for who should do the forward for the book. And he said, C.S. Lewis, I'd like to put forward C.S. Lewis. His publisher actually responded saying, he had a bad reputation at the time. He strongly recommended that he not be the one.
Not do it.
And Tolkien wrote back to his publisher saying, you can stuff it.
Right.
I don't care about how this is received, his reputation. And he literally said, were it not for Lewis's support, I would never have published this. So he's doing or it's not happening.
Wow. That's so good. So, I mean, obviously, yeah, having friends that care about you, right, and about your work, but it also, I think, be that friend, right? Be someone who encourages other people to push and to do the thing, right? So that's really good. And I think to bring one more thing in, doing, whether it's consistent, like a 30-day challenge, whether it's just waking up every day, Seth Godin style, making sure you're doing it, the confidence comes from having done it a bunch of times, right? And so all of a sudden, I think, after the 30 days, right, you might be tired because that was 30 straight days, but by the end, I'm putting words in your mouth, but by the end, I would imagine that you feel much more capable, that those things come easier. You're not as self-conscious.
Under your belt.
You've got a few wins under your belt.
For sure.
Right? So there's this like confidence that comes as you've shipped.
For sure.
That helps you ship again.
Confidence is so 100%. And it's you get the bonus of the good stuff.
Yeah.
But also actually you realize when you've shipped the bad stuff that the sky hasn't fallen in.
Right. No, that's a big part of it.
And it's like one of those things, isn't it, where they always say if you're socially anxious turning up to a party or something, one of the best things in the world to remind yourself is that no one cares.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you assume that all these eyes are fixed on you, whereas everyone's wrapped up in their own world. And if you go a bit red or you're awkward, 50 people don't leave a party thinking David was red and awkward.
Yeah, right.
They're thinking about, I wonder whether that inappropriate joke I made landed or whatever else.
That's right. They're worried about their own things that they're self-conscious about.
Yeah. And that other saying, which is so great about the shipping and the stuff not being great and the consistency of it, is I love that saying that the newspapers of today line the wastepaper basket of tomorrow morning.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Because there's another one, right? This, especially in today's world, right? With all of the content, all of the things that are out there, news, media, social media, everything. Like there's so much to be distracted by that you shouldn't worry too much.
Sure.
In a sense, right?
For sure.
So I remember we were writing our core values and things as a company, and one of the things that came out of it is that we want to encourage creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Within our team, but within the people who come to work at our work clubs or anyone that we, interact with in any of the things that we do. And one of the things that I remember being written was that, reminding ourselves that creativity is a muscle and that, you can go do it even if you're out of shape, right? That you've got to start somewhere. And so that's kind of what we're getting at, right? Is ship and then start to work that muscle and see where you get in the longer term.
Love it. And when we close this conversation off, we've got a gift for everyone we're going to give. So maybe now's not the time. We'll tell you about the gift. But
do you have any, is there anything we haven't covered that you had?
Well, yeah. The last thing I would say is if I could perhaps speak into the self-promotion bit.
Oh, yes. Please do. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, because we hate self-promotion. Right. And I think it's interesting for you as well as a founder, because it's hard not to distance yourself from the brand. I know you always attempted to do that, but I think for founders everywhere, this is probably a challenge. But so I was giving a talk recently. Well, I was co-hosting a book club with my friend Will James, and he was an amazing coach. Yeah. And he was prepping me. We were prepping for the book club, And in classic Will James style, he was already coaching me as we were prepping to on the
Quality coach brings the coaching.
Exactly. I was saying to him, it's on a book that's impacted our company quite a lot called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. And I was saying to him, right, Will, the only thing I don't want from this book club is to talk about myself, right? I was like, the last thing I want to do is make this about Jamie or make it about GoodSpace.
Yeah.
And the book is so great, right? That let's just talk around, let's try and distill kind of the best bits of the book.
Yeah.
And Will's point was really interesting because he said, firstly, if people just wanted the cliff notes of the book, they could get that online.
Right.
Through AI or whatever.
But they could just read the book.
Or read it, yeah. But secondly, people are really interested in how to move from theory to action, right? So to hear how the book collided with you and your business and what impact that has had. It's not just around like lessons that we put into practice and good stuff we've done. It's questions we're still grappling with.
That's right.
And that sort of thing. That actually is the most interesting part to people. And it's also the bit that is most unique to why they've turned up to this session.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's funny because this is definitely something that keeps me from doing certain things because I cringe at the founder culture that's very self-promotional and puts themselves out there. And I just don't want to be that, right? And so I probably go too far in the other direction and don't promote appropriately enough. Or there's probably enough some promotion that's healthy. So the funny thing is, as you're saying this, I'm hearing if you feel like if I'm creating something and I don't mean it for self-promotion, then it doesn't matter what someone perceives it as. Like, and it's probably likely that if I'm doing it because it's a healthy thing, like it's not going to be received as self-promotion. I think we can read that in people.
Yeah.
Like if I'm that concerned, I don't think anyone's going to be perceiving it as self-promotion because it's not going to come off that way.
Yeah, that's
and I think so. It's kind of a false narrative in the sense that we've built up in our head that they're going to think I'm doing this thing, and it's like, well, if that's not in me, then it's probably not going to be perceived that way.
Yeah, that's really good. I would almost go as far to say that if you are, I wonder if you do experience feelings of imposter syndrome, whether that specifically qualifies you better than if you didn't.
Interesting.
Because, and again, well, if you listen to this podcast a lot, we basically hear us just talking around Seth Godin and a lot. But his point he made, he gave a brilliant talk on imposter syndrome where he said, everyone has it, well, but you almost hope you have it, because if you don't have it, you have something far worse, which is a messiah complex.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Right. A belief that you deserve to be on a pedestal and the whole world should be listening to you. And now that is bad.
Yeah,
that's frightening. So, I was having this conversation with someone the other day and she's got brilliant thoughts and she happens to be a coach, my friend Layla. And she was like, I don't want to go on LinkedIn. I cringe because everyone there is self-promotional and humble bragging. And I said, that's why you're valuable there.
Yeah.
And I would say same to you,
good.
Right?
Yeah, like, right. I mean, well, I hope so.
100%.
Yeah, right. Hopefully it's inspirational and possibly helpful. That's the theme of the podcast, right? So I mean, we'll bring it home here, but it's been helpful to me to bring it. I mean, the nature of what we're doing right now, like I'm already thinking about, do we say that thing the right way? Mm-hmm. And we're gonna send this out, and it's gonna be fun. I think it might still be recording. But the point is that what we want to do is we want to encourage each other. This is part of our kind of partnership in business and in life. But we encourage our team to put things out, to write, to do whatever it is, to put themselves out there. In fact, we've created a bit of a theme for the year that's about putting ourselves out, right? It potentially exposing ourselves to criticism and to the world in a way that well, the theme called expose yourself. It's not in that way, but to put ourselves out there and to really go for it. And I think one of the things our team Esther has been really helpful in creating a tool that hopefully that will help us and maybe you, that we'll put a link in and you can download this tool. But it's the Make Good Everyday calendar. And so you can see, you can just go through every day and tick off when you've done something and you've shipped, you've made something and you've shipped it. And so it's just a really fun, kind of easy way. You can put it on your desk, you can put it in your office somewhere, on your mirror or something like that, and be encouraged to keep going.
Love it. I've got mine on my pinboard at home. And a couple of points, major shout out, by the way, to Esther for creating it. And two things she said about it in terms of how she designed it. One, she said that these lovely wavy lines are because, in her words, consistency is rarely linear.
Right.
It feels very different on different days. The second point she said is some advice for how to do this is make sure that your daily goal or habit is big enough to have felt significant, but small enough that you're confident you can actually do it.
Yeah, no, that's good. So what have you set as your daily goal?
I was caught between two, but I thought actually it would be nice to do something that isn't worky related. So mine is to perform a dance every day.
Dance every day.
Do a dance every day.
Any kind, any particular form?
I would stress this is mainly in my kitchen.
With the kids, I hope.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe not by yourself.
But just anything to, and it's like very achievable.
I like that.
But bring a bit of joy.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Fun. I went a little closer to work. I've been, under your encouragement, basically journaling every day and trying to write down, actually a newsletter I follow that it's a daily email that I get. And it's like, similar kind of conversation. He's saying, you don't have to come up with something, novel every single time, but something happened in the day before and you can tell a story about it. And a variety of things. Even, I posted something on LinkedIn today that was just something that happened yesterday, and it prompted an idea in my head. And it wasn't like this long, drawn out, essay. It was a few sentences, but it was a helpful way to just kind of process things and kind of flex that muscle a little bit and write something and be there. Brilliant. So I've been encouraged by that.
That's so good. It's just about the movement.
Really good.
Yeah.
Well, nice one. That'll be in the comments or in the description below. You can download that. You'll find it elsewhere. I'm sure we'll be promoting it all over the place. But really, really good chat. I think there's a variety of things that we can come back to in different ways over the time coming forward. I know we'll talk about Tolkien more.
Yeah,
we'll probably talk about Godin and a variety of other folks. Certainly David Hyatt.
And perhaps we can include in the show notes the Tim Ferriss and Seth Godin.
Yeah, we'll see some links.
If not, you can just search on all the places you get your podcast, you'll find it.
Nice one. Well, so our habit is going to be to keep producing these. So we hope to speak to you again and to be on this going forward. And maybe we'll get better every time.
Yeah.
So
it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been really good. Thanks for joining. Everyone,
Thanks, guys.
for joining. We'll see you.